sign them like all the rest of them.
Exactly.
Call the meeting to order. Nate?
Present.
Mike?
Present.
John?
Here.
Kevin?
Here.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need a motion for consent agenda?
So moved.
Get a motion or a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public input. This is time, please. For items not already on the agenda with a time limit of 3 minutes each. Maggie Burger with Speer Financial Incorporated to review Lisbon Financial Obligations.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me okay?
Sound good.
Wonderful. Well, this is Maggie Burger with Speer Financial. I appreciate you letting me zoom into your meeting. I've been on the road for a couple of additional meetings, and I've pulled over now at this point in time. So just wanted to walk through what is in your packet. This is the first section that we're looking at is your red section. This is your general obligation debt section. This outlines any general obligation debt that the city has outstanding. The only general obligation debt outstanding by the city at this point in time is the 2020 general obligation debt. We give you all the details up in that first box, talk about the date that it was issued, how much was issued. The TIC is the true interest cost. That 1.23% is much lower than what we're seeing in interest rates today. We are seeing around a 3.75 to a 4% for municipal debt. This bond will become callable, meaning that you could pay it in part or in full after June 1st of 2028. And you see that that is where you see the double underline under that principal amount of $410,000. In the center of this sheet, we give you the total principal and interest, and then we tell you the ways that the city has identified that they're going to pay some of this GO debt down. So we've identified that some of this debt will be paid with TIF revenues, some of the debt will be paid with sewer revenues and water revenues. Part of that 2020 debt had some refunding in it, and so we have that identified for the water sewer portion, and then we're going to go ahead and use property taxes as well, and that is outlined there for you with an arrow.
All right, good talk.
Fiscal year 25 is what we're already in right now. So that levy, sorry, are you there still?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. So that levy is just really in line with where the levy's been the last couple of years, where it will be over the next 3 years. So that's all good for the city. We go on to your orange pages. This outlines the revenue debt that the city has outstanding. This revenue debt does not count against the city's debt capacity, but what it does do is paid with the revenues of the system. So the biggest takeaway from this page is that on the far right column, you cannot pay any of this debt with property taxes. It must all be paid with water or sewer revenues of the system for which the debt was issued. All of the debt outstanding that's revenue debt is state revolving fund debt, or what we consider to be state revolving fund, that's the SRF program. It has a very low 2% interest rate. That's a subsidized interest rate. It's a great program for upgrades, improvements to your sewer and water system. That's offered by the state of Iowa. Total outstanding there between all three of those debts is $750,000. But again, cannot be paid with property taxes, must be paid with the revenues of the system. We go on and we talk then about the purple page. This is just one rebate obligation that the city has outstanding. That rebate obligation is to budget lines. That is an annual appropriation amount. The not to exceed amount on this agreement was $350,000, which basically means that is the most you can give them in the time period set forth. This rebate agreement will expire in 2031. So if by 2031 you've rebated them back $350,000, that's great. If you've not rebated them back $350,000, the timing will just expire on this rebate agreement. You are rebating them back at a sliding scale, and that sliding scale is going to be 70%. It goes to 60% for a couple of years. That's pretty common in a rebate agreement. And I'll remind you, a rebate agreement is just that you've entered into an agreement with the developer that says, we will build. The developer says, we will build something, it will pay you taxes, and you, the city, say, we will rebate back a portion of those taxes to you over this period of time. And so we've got that. Those are annually appropriated, meaning that you take action every year to appropriate that rebate agreement. We really believe this is the safest way for cities to offer incentives to developers. Basically, you're saying, you know, we're looking at this. We want you to do a development. We don't want you, as a city, come up with any money out of pocket. We really want you to build that new development. We want you to pay those new taxes. And at that point in time, we will rebate some money back to you based on when you pay those taxes. Really, they have to perform before you have to perform, which is pretty common, a pretty safe way to enter into any kind of an agreement. The next page is your yellow section. What we look at on this yellow section is the different portions of your debt that is being paid with TIF revenues. So again, from that 2020 debt, we had some refunding as part of that debt. And the refunding that you can see was refunding of the 2011 B, but also you're paying some of the Sportsplex debt that was part of that in there as well. So we've broken out for you those portions that were outside of, you know, being paid with other sources or debt service levy. Those sources are listed here. And again, you use part of those dollars from TIF to help offset those debt payments. We have in there the budget lines rebate agreement that is shown there in purple. And so your far right column is showing you that you have approximately $161,000 of TIF debt that you're going to be asking for in fiscal year 26. Those forms, I know that Christine has worked on those. You likely have already approved those. Those forms have to be turned into the county no later than December 1st of 2024. And again, that's certifying debt in anticipation of the fiscal year 26. We go on to our green pages, and we outline here for you fiscal, this is our debt capacity sheet. So we're going to look at column number 2, and I'm going to have you follow straight down that column with me. This is fiscal year 25, which we are currently in for the city. Your actual property valuation is $242,815,000. I do want you to look to the column number 1. Column number 1, you can see, was $195 million. So that's a pretty significant increase, approximately 24% increase. If you'll all recall with me, about 15, 16 months ago, you got a letter from the county assessor saying, hey, you haven't done anything to your property, but we're going to raise your valuation. This is where this is being reflected. That was after the 1/1/23 or January 1st, 2023. And so you see that across the state, we saw a revaluation of properties from residential, commercial, industrial. You are at about 24%. We've seen anywhere from about 15% to a 35% in these reports for different cities and communities that we do these tip and debt reports for. So you're really kind of falling right there in the middle of what we've seen. If we go back to column number 2 and read straight down, we are showing that you've got a statutory debt limit then off of that valuation of $12,140,000. Again, grew pretty significantly over last year. This valuation, remember, does not include any rollbacks. This is 100% valuation. Out that $12 million, we have to deduct the $4 million of GO debt that is outstanding, that's principal only. You have rebate agreements of approximately $54,000 in fiscal year 25. You will pay principal back in 25 of $385,000. So at the end of fiscal year 25, you will have approximately $8.4 million of debt capacity that remains. That is approximately 70% of your total debt capacity. Most of our cities tell us they never want to issue more than 80% of their total debt capacity. So with that in mind, we've removed 20% contingency. If we take that off of the 8.4, we leave you with about $6,027,000 of debt capacity. Now, debt capacity is different than issuing debt, right? You have plenty of debt capacity to do future projects, but we only want you to issue debt when you've got the means and identify the ways that you're going to pay that debt bill. All right? We have built in about a 2% growth. The city really was growing at about 2% prior to that revaluation. So we're using that 2% as kind of our guide going forward. We know that the city has some growth in commercial and residential. So we're really attributing any kind of growth to probably those sectors of your community. And then we go on to our blue pages. This is the last part of our TIP report. And this is where we talk about how much increment or TIP dollars have been generated in your TIP district since your TIP district started. So again, we look at column number 2 and we read straight down fiscal year 25. Commercial valuation in your TIP districts has grown through the years at $13,037,000. We've got about $3.3 million of industrial growth from the beginning of your TIP. Residential growth has grown about $62 million. Again, seeing the majority of that probably last year in that valuation increase. But I also remind you that for the past few years, we've had a classification called multi-residential. That classification was really for apartment buildings, multi-family housing structures. And that classification in 25 rolls into the residential. So if you had some apartment structures that were in that multi-residential classification, they are just now included in the residential classification and paying at that same rollback amount. Total TIP property valuation there is about $43,647,000. We take that times the TIP tax rate of $27.83. That generates about $1,215,000. The city is using about $116,000 of that towards your GO debt. You're using approximately $54,000 of that towards your rebate agreements. So that leaves you unclaimed TIP dollars of about $1,044,000. I'm not telling you to go out and claim those TIP dollars. First, you have to have obligations to ask for those TIP dollars. And I remind you, you've been giving back or not claiming those TIP dollars for a number of years in that same variable amount, based again on that valuation increase. Really, any dollars that you do not claim, that constitutes growth for the city's property valuation, the school district's property valuation, and the county's property valuation. And so we definitely, want to use TIP when TIP is available for new incentives. But we, and you at the city are not anyway not using TIP in the correct way. You're using it just the way it's supposed to be used for the current obligations that you have outstanding. As future obligations arise, we look at that, we look at those rebates as to, how much valuation are they going to bring on? What would they pay in new taxes? We look at new GO debt obligations. does this increase, the viability of the community? Can we claim this to be, an economic development project? Should we be paying part of this debt with TIP? Those are all the questions that we ask when we get ready to issue debt or have the city enter into any sort of new obligation. That's a whole lot of information. I went through that quickly to be cognizant of your time tonight. But what kind of questions do you guys have for me with regards to that information?
So overall, how are we standing, do you think?
Ultimately, I'm going to say this: you have really good remaining debt capacity. So let's focus in first on those green pages. You have 70% of your overall debt capacity still remaining to you. That just means you have a very, you just don't have a lot of debt outstanding. That's good. You've got some revenue debt outstanding. It's being paid with the revenues of the system. From a general obligation debt standpoint, really just having the one debt outstanding is good. It means that you've got some ability to bring on some additional debt. We talk about that when we look at those new debts that could come on again. What are the repayment sources? And we help the city identify those. Overall, I think the community is doing well from a debt standpoint, from a capacity standpoint. I think you're using the monies that are available to you. And we know that everybody's budgets got a little bit tighter with the passage of House File 718. And so honestly, right now is a time that we're sort of looking at that and how that's affecting everybody's budgets. And I think cities are being a little more cautious on the issuance of debt right now to just see how this plays out for the next 6 to 12 months and what effects that has. I will remind you the debt service levy is outside of your $8.10 or that general fund levy. So you always can levy in the debt service. So if you are needing to take on new debt, let's just say there's some new growth, you need to take on some new debt to help make that happen, to maybe do some infrastructure work and helping that happen. You absolutely have the capacity to do that. And we also look at it that you would have the ability to levy that debt in the debt service levy. There are no restrictions per House File 718 or any other code section restrictions at that point in time for levying that debt.
Do you have anything?
I'm good.
Nope. All right. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you all very much for having me this evening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Approval for paying warrants. Approval of paying warrants to November 18th, 2024 due to canceling meeting.
This is just the normal procedure for, if you recall last meeting we passed that we were going to have a meeting on November 11th, which is Veterans Day.
This is just, if anything comes in, we can sign the checks.
Make a motion to approve.
A motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion of possible action in reference to pay estimate number 1 to LL Pelling Incorporated for 2024 business 30 resurfacing in the amount of $698,490.84.
New days on.
Yes, good evening. This was submitted on October 1st, so this took care of about 65% of the project. Was current as of the date that they submitted it. As you're aware, the project is complete now, but this pay estimate covers that first portion up to October 1st, and would recommend that we approve paying fellow Pelling $698,490.84 for the work completed.
Make a motion to approve payment.
A motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing, ordinances, resolutions, nothing. Correspondence?
Nothing.
City engineer report.
As you're aware, we have the water main project complete. They had gone through their punch list items. We'll come back in the spring, take a look at any areas. If there's anything that needs to be addressed at that point, we can do that. We'll have a warranty for this project, or maintenance bond that'll run for 4 years. So we have time to come back and correct things as they come up. Business 30, that is substantially complete. There are a couple of minor items that they're going to take a look at, some water valves Travis needs to have adjusted out, and then there was some striping by Casey's that is going to get fixed as well. They'll get that ground here shortly. That's something that we'll take care of. There was a line that carried through on the plans that shouldn't have, so we'll address that with more Pelling. And then well 5, we continue to work on the chemical feed building to get those plans ready.
We got anything for Dave? Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Public Works?
We're started on leaves. Just want to let everybody know that we're only going as far as the arm will reach. We're not raking clear up to their front doors, so everybody can keep blowing to the curb as close as possible. And then obviously as the season goes on and we get less and less leaves, we'll go farther to make sure we complete an area is done. So we're done putting some of the millings down on the alleys. We'll pick that back up in the summertime. We placed almost all the milling pile that was behind 4L. We did haul some to a different spot, but other than that, we're gonna try to keep that entrance fine, but as fast as people drive through there and using it as a racetrack, I don't know how well the millings are gonna hold up for us.
Where's that, over by the ball diamond?
Yeah, by 4L.
Can we put some speed bumps in there?
It's rough now. I mean, that was kind of the point, was we didn't want it super smooth to make it worse. Because when we first did it, we had it really smooth and it was they were drifting across. So, we're gonna keep, I got some binder I'm going to get. I'm gonna try to put that in a couple spots too to harden it up. Hopefully that'll stop it from rolling. But other than that, that's it.
We got anything for Travis?
There's no real street there, but, and so we don't have signs that say 25 mile an hour or anything, do we? 15 miles an hour in the park, anything like that? Okay.
Question
Just two things. We have our Halloween town event on Thursday from 5 to 7 downtown, so I'll be working on that all week to get ready for that. And then we started girls basketball on Sunday. So we had 59 total kids. We have a first and second grade camp that's ran by the high school girls basketball team, and then we have 2 third and fourth grade teams and 3 fifth and sixth grade teams this year. So that is all I have.
So you have a sweatshirt that matches the new truck?
I do.
What time are we closing down the streets Thursday?
I will close them at 4 o'clock.
Do we have anything for Regan? Library?
Nothing for Rick tonight.
Police?
He is on vacation and nothing for him.
Ambulance?
Nothing there either.
Fire chief?
And nothing fire related.
City administrator?
Met with Southeast Lynn Community Center, Nicole and a group of ladies from there. They're getting a plan put together for their community garden, so we're going to be working to facilitate that. A week prior to last, I had a community leadership breakfast over at Cornell College. Met the new CDG director who is going to start attending some council meetings. I think she'll do really good over there. Her name's Jessie. So you'll be introduced to her here in a future meeting. Spent the majority of the time working on the transfer agreement. Everything's been positive with that. So we'll keep working that. Several nuisances and follow-ups to nuisances. Just trying to stay ahead of that. As you probably saw, the new trucks in service. We left our logo, had to do a little color shading to make it look good, and I think it does. So we have a back rack that's kind of a window protector similar to the white truck, and the light came in, so we'll be getting that installed shortly. Met with a gentleman in reference to some new development interests in the industrial park. So I'm going to try to facilitate a meeting with him and some owners of the property out there to see what we can do. And first week in November, I believe it's on a Thursday, I'll be headed to Ames with our local insurance agent for the annual insurance conference, risk liability conference. And I just want to give a shout out to Travis and the crew for, I don't know if you guys have seen the alleys. There's a lot of work that went into there. They took out about 4 inches of gravel, fixed the potholes, and then laid the millings back down, and it's probably some of the nicest alleys we've ever had in town. So thanks to all their work. I know it's pretty monotonous doing the same thing every day, but I think they worked hard, and I appreciate their work. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brandon. Christina?
Getting things ready for budget season to start, have a budget workshop coming up in November, and we've completed the lead line survey and are now working on the letters that have to be sent out for it.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Pete? Pete?
I don't have anything, just reiterate thank you to the Public Works for the alley work. Do you add binder that every time you lay down the,
No.
only when necessary?
Only when necessary.
Okay.
And we've got it because we're gonna go in tomorrow and get some hot patch, and we're gonna try to fix some streets on the asphalt, the concrete. So it'll just help it a year as a Band-Aid for a temp fix. But yeah, no, I was talking with Pelling on different ideas for down there, and they told me to try some of that too, so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Dennis?
That's it.
Mike?
Nothing.
John?
The alleys look good. I'm glad to see those millings used. That's all I have.
Kevin?
Nothing.
I got nothing. So, meeting adjourned.